The rain poured down in relentless sheets, drenching the quiet village of Nso. A village set on rolling hill and river. The earth seemed to groan under the weight of the downpour, as if it, too, shared in the grief that enveloped the land. The sky wept that day, its sorrow hanging heavily in the air. Beneath the shadow of the ancient baobab tree, Muna knelt, a widow mourning the loss of a husband, but with a pain far deeper. Her soul was caught in the tangled web of grief and longing. The wind carried her sobs, and her tears, mingling with the rain, seemed endless. She held tightly to a small, wooden bracelet, a simple token that had once adorned her son's wrist. It was the only thing left of Kelechi. Muna had been known far and wide for her strength, her resilience. She was the woman who had withstood the fierce droughts, who had tended to the sick during the fever that ravaged the village. Her spirit was unyielding, a rock to which the villagers clung in their times of despair. She had buried husbands, sons, and daughters. But nothing in her life had prepared her for the one wound that would shatter her to the core, the disappearance of her son. It had been a year since that fateful night. A night like this, stormy, cold, and unforgiving. Kelechi had gone to fetch water from the river. It was his task, as it had always been, to carry the burden of the family's needs. But that night, the river called to him in a way it had never done before, and Kelechi never returned. Muna's heart had broken that night, as the moon hung low and heavy in the sky, offering no answers. The villagers whispered of the river spirit, a mysterious force that was said to claim the souls of the young when the land grew restless. They spoke in hushed tones of the spirit's hunger, its thirst for the children of the village, and how it would take them as offerings to calm the anger of the earth. But Muna had never believed in such stories. She was a woman of reason, of faith in the tangible, the real. She had lived through too many storms to let superstition take hold. But now, after a year of searching, of praying, and of mourning, she had no choice but to believe. The river spirit had taken her son. The storm had grown fiercer by the hour, lightning cracking the sky open like a jagged wound. Muna stood on the edge of the baobab tree, the place where her family had gathered for generations, and made a decision. She could no longer wait. She would go to the river. She would face the spirit that had stolen her son. She would demand Kelechi back, or she would join him in the depth of the river, to be with him forever. With a lantern clenched tightly in her hand, and the wild winds of the storm whipping around her, Muna began her journey to the river. The path, once familiar and comforting, now seemed like a journey to the unknown. The river had swollen from the relentless rains, its waters now roaring and thrashing like an angry beast, furious and untamed. But Muna did not hesitate. She had come too far. When she reached the bank, she stood there, staring into the dark abyss of the water, her heart a maelstrom of love and rage. With a voice raw from grief and desperation, she screamed into the night, "I am Muna, mother of Kelechi. If you took my son, take me too." For a moment, there was silence. The wind stopped. The rain ceased. And then, from the swirling mist, emerged a figure. Tall, ethereal, with eyes as black as the riverbed. Her hair shimmered like liquid silver, and her voice, though soft, carried the weight of centuries. "Muna," the figure spoke, her voice a melodic whisper that cut through the night. "You seek your son, but the price of love is sacrifice." Muna stood tall, her heart thundering in her chest. She did not flinch. "Take whatever you want. My soul, my life. Just give me back my son." The spirit's eyes gleamed with ancient knowledge, and she extended a long, slender hand towards Muna. Without hesitation, Muna reached out, her fingers trembling but resolute. The moment their hands touched, She felt herself being pulled, violently, into the cold embrace of the river. The water, icy and relentless, swallowed her whole. For what felt like an eternity, there was nothing but darkness. Silence. The stillness of the grave. And then, a faint voice. Mama. Mona's eyes shot open. She was no longer submerged in the depth of the river, but standing on a shore that shimmered with an ethereal glow, as if the very air was made of moonlight. She looked around, disoriented, before her gaze fell on the figure before her. There, standing in the soft glow, was Kelechi. His skin was pale and thin, his eyes wide with fear, but he was alive, and standing before her. Kelechi. Mona cried out, her voice breaking as she rushed to him. She wrapped her arms around him, holding him tight, feeling his warmth, his heartbeat. My boy. My sweet boy. I found you. But as Mona embraced her son, the river spirit reappeared, her form now less imposing, her face marked by a profound sadness. You have found him, Mona, the spirit spoke softly. But he cannot return without payment. Mona stiffened, a cold chill running through her veins. She stood between her son and the spirit, shielding him with her body. Take me. I have already offered my life. I am ready. The spirit smiled, but there was no joy in her expression, only a deep sorrow, as if she mourned the loss of something far greater than Mona could ever understand. A mother's love is the strongest magic, the spirit whispered. But I do not need your life, Mona. I need your tears. Mona's heart skipped a beat. Tears. The spirit nodded, and suddenly Mona felt a burning sensation in her eyes, as if the very depth of her grief was being pulled to the surface. Tears, tears of love, of loss, of sacrifice, began to spill from her eyes, falling like precious jewels to the ground. The earth drank them up, as if it had been waiting for this moment for eons. The spirit's form began to dissolve, her voice soft but filled with finality. Your tears have freed him, Mona. Love has broken the curse. The world around them twisted and shifted, the riverbank and the shimmering light dissolving into nothingness. Mona and Kelechi gasped, as if being thrown back into their bodies. They tumbled onto the soft earth of the riverbank. The storm had stopped. The wind had stilled. The river, once wild and furious, now lay calm, its waters glistening in the moonlight. The moon, bright and full, hung low in the sky, casting its soft light across the world. Mona held her son close, her heart racing with joy. Her tears, now of relief, ran down her face. She held him tighter, never wanting to let go again. The villagers, roused by the sound of Mona's laughter, rushed to the riverbank. They could scarcely believe their eyes when they saw Kelechi standing there, alive and well. They had thought him lost to the river forever. But there he was, returned from the dead. From that day on, the river was no longer feared. It was called Mona's River, a place of remembrance, a symbol of the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. It became a reminder that even the darkest forces could bend to the power of love. And as for Mona, she never cried again. Her tears had already worked their magic. They had broken the curse, defied the river, and brought her son home. The tears of Mona, the mother who defied the impossible and won, would be remembered forever. The moral of the story is: the unbreakable bond of love between a mother and her child can overcome even the greatest challenges. Love, sacrifice, and determination have the power to defy fate and change the course of life. This tale shows that the strength of a mother's love can transcend both life and death, reminding us that even in the face of insurmountable grief, the power of love can bring healing and hope.